Good afternoon, good afternoon, good afternoon, everybody, and Happy New Year. Welcome to 2022 and welcome to Building the Black Educator Pipeline podcast. I am your host, Shayna Terrell, educator activist. And that's right, we are still in 2022 and I'm still in pursuit of freedom and liberation for my people. Want to start the top of the show with just telling y'all I'm a little under the weather. So you might hear a little cough, cough, a little sniff, sniff every now and again, but you know what? That ain't stopping us. We still plowing on through, okay? So we are back. And shout out to all my co-conspirators out there watching, who've been watching every week and who are back this week. I know we are easing back into the routines. Hope everybody had an awesome holiday break and had some awesome time off. If you're like me, you like, hey, what day was it? Is it? I'm trying to get back into my regular groove thing. So that's what we're doing here. And shout out to everybody, and I hope you had an amazing New Year. And of course, thank you to Citizens Ed and the Center for Black Educator Development for creating this platform for us to talk to real people in the real struggle, doing the real work. So we are going to jump our first show off of 2022, of course, by centering and talking about building the Black Educator Pipeline in the new year, but really talking about purpose in the new year. With so many things happening and so many things going on in the world, I think it's important that we ground ourselves and we center ourselves and finding out and thinking about what is our purpose. You know what I mean? What are we here to do? What movements are we going to be a part of? How are we going to organize? What is our purpose? But what better way to bring in the new year and talk about this good stuff without having my guy, our Baba, our resident Baba, Dr. Greg Carr, to join us today to talk about Nia. What is your purpose? Hey, Doc.
Hey, Happy New Year, my dear beloved sister Shayna, Harriet Tubman, Terrell. How are you?
I'm doing all right. I'm doing all right.
You're operating at UGRR, Underground Railroad. It's kind of overground
Listen,
too, though. We are
I
worldwide.
know.
Hello,
I
everybody
know.
joining us from everywhere. So it's good
I
to
was about
see
to say we kind of snuck from the underground. We kind of
you. It's all
it's
right.
all right though.
It's all
It's
right,
all
though.
right.
It's all
We
right.
still we still engineering this thing. But
No,
I am good. Happy 2022 to you.
happy 2022. I was reading the Buddhist what's it Nick not thought, and he was saying, where do these years come from? He said, is 2022 somewhere waiting for you? So in other words, so 2021 and 2022 is coming, so can you go there now? No. So it's just numbers on the calendar. We do what we do.
Yes.
That was a Christmas Eve that Harriet Tubman went and got to her brothers off the Eastern Shore. It's like, it's Christmas Eve. Well, that's just a day. It's nighttime. Let's go.
It's
You
nice
ready? You
out.
ready? So yeah,
Right.
yeah. But I mean, we're teachers, so we have
Yeah.
some real issues to raise and questions asked around this topic that you've guided us into to begin the year purpose.
We do. And our last two shows, well not last two shows, basically our last 2 weeks we were off because of holiday break. But the three shows prior to that, we had some heavy hitters, we had some real giants on the show.
I definitely saw you have been, and those of you, if you haven't gone back and seen conversations with Erica Huggins and Charlie Cobb, you had master teachers who have the in fact, if they were giving out medals for liberation, you wouldn't be able to see their faces. These medals all over their chest, all up and down. And those conversations are not just fire, they are classrooms in themselves. And I want to say that to you publicly. Just remarkable work, and sitting with our elders and really do. The only value in that for us is to learn from where we've been before. It
Yeah.
amazes me how these folk writing books and making appearances, and they never mention anybody before them. And all they're embarrassing is themselves. I'm like, y'all know we did this before, right? So
Yes.
you know everybody laughing at you,
And that
right? So no,
that was
that
one of
would
my
be
biggest
brilliant.
reasons. Thank you, Doc. But that was one
Yeah,
of my biggest reasons for having those folks on. So folks can understand like we're not here reinventing the wheel. Like people have done this, people have laid a foundation, people have laid a framework for us. Um, and they're still here.
yeah.
These people aren't dead and gone to some ancient philosophers. These
How
are
about that?
real people.
How about
These are
that?
real people who are still existing, who are still living, who again sacrifice and put their lives on the line for us.
Continue to
Um,
sacrifice. Oh, brother Barry, it say you wishing you healing. The folk are chiming in, ain't they, Shayna? They
yes,
send you that.
thank you, Brother Perry.
No question.
Appreciate you.
No question.
Much appreciation.
So
But
keep
one of
your
the
mind
things
up
I
on your
learned,
business.
Go ahead, what you about to say, Doc?
Now I was gonna say, what's on your mind?
I was gonna say one of the things I learned from especially last month's shows was these folks who were out um in the fight and laid the foundation for us. They
Mhm.
all like had a purpose and found a purpose.
Yes.
But before I even get into that, what we missed last week, and I would love to expound on just a little bit, just because of who we are and the show we are,
Mm-hmm.
is Kwanzaa. Um,
Yeah.
yeah. So like today's show is Nia, purpose, and that's like purpose is one of my Nia is one of my favorite principles because I just feel like purpose is important, right? Like especially when you talk about coming into the new year in 2022, everybody's like, okay, it's a new year, new me, right? That's all about purpose and finding your way, like
Right.
finding who you are. Like
Right.
some people reset themselves every single year, right?
Isn't that it? Sometimes it lasts 24 hours. Sometimes it lasts 30 minutes. Sometimes it lasts a week or a whole month. But rarely does it last a whole year. So,
I want people to find some lifelong purposes. I
right.
want people to
Right.
get connected to
Come on into
lifelong
the year with the
purpose.
old purpose you had renewed, maybe.
Yes, yes.
You know?
You know what? I just need to because I made my purpose 5 years ago. Let's just revisit and make sure I'm on the right track,
You
right?
know?
But I want people to be connected to purpose. Well, Baba, if you could just really quickly, especially for our educators out there watching, if we have any young people out there watching, just give a brief history of Kwanzaa, and
Oh,
how that
yeah.
came to be in the African American community, why it's so important to
Oh,
make
yeah.
sure we keep that tradition alive.
With pleasure. And in fact, if you all root around on the internet, you can see uh, there was a documentary made about 10 years ago by Malefi Kamalo Asante, the son of Malefi Asante, the professor at Temple, called The Black Candle. And he interviews Dr. Karinga, he interviews Maya Angelou and many others. It's a good documentary. And I kind of chuckle because, of course, Kamalo, or as he's called himself now, Malefi Jr., was raised in Philly. He went to school in Philly. Of course, his parents there. And by the way, I shade the transition of the great elder Carr Welsh, who his mother, who made transition there. She was, many years on the faculty at Temple, one of my professors, as well as his father. And it's a good documentary, but I kind of laugh because two of the oldest documentaries on Kwanzaa come out of silly Philadelphia. And if you go around on YouTube, you can find these documentaries. And one of them I love especially. You remember Brother Kofi, his father made a documentary. He's up on Germantown Avenue. And there's this scene near the beginning where these black children, it's a bunch of black children who are connected with Freedom Theater. And I mean, I'm talking about like 6, 7, 8, 9-year-olds, and little girls are skipping rope and playing patty cake. The brothers is bouncing the basketball. And then they look around, and over across the street, they see this white Santa, like a cutout of a white Santa Claus. And then they drop all their toys and stuff, and they start looking, and then they start walking toward it. And then one of the children is like, "Cha!" And then you hear this like flute in the back, like, "Woo!" And the Santa disappears. And then they go into this Kwanzaa poem about how they go to the stores and force you to pay your money, and all of this is deceit. I'm like, look at this. I mean, this had to be like 73 or something. Like all these children probably got grandchildren now. And I'm saying, but they do this whole poem about how drop that white myth and embrace this cultural ritual. Now, people will say that Kwanzaa is not Black Christmas, and it's not.
Mm-mm.
However, it was designed in 1966. Malana Karenga, who's still alive, who, if we didn't have COVID, would have been in Philly probably this week because he usually spends the day there. Our sister, Mama Maisha and Goza,
Yeah. Yes.
who longtime member of his organization. He used to do it over at the school that's no longer there. Temple got a football field there. William Penn. They used to have like the big Kwanzaa events. Sometimes it'd be the first night of Kwanzaa, sometimes it'd be the last night. But anyway, his organization, US, which quickly then spread across California and then to the East Coast, they developed this concept of Kwanzaa out of a philosophy called Kawaida, which is a philosophy that combines the best of our memory as African people, the best of our philosophy, our ways of knowing, with solving contemporary problems. That's really the foundation for Kwanzaa. It's not a return to Africa. There's no one African festival called Kwanzaa in that sense. Kwanzaa is Kiswahili term that means first fruits. It's a harvest festival. And so it celebrates the abundance that we have gained through our work, Kazi. The old school educators, the folk that taught Baba Sharif and in the independent schools in Philadelphia, they used to have a saying in the African Centered schools, kazi, or work in Kiswahili. They would say kazi is the blackest of all. So in
Mm.
other words, you want to be black? Let's get this work.
Yes,
You
that's
know,
exactly
they
the
talk about
work.
purpose here. Kazi is the blackest of all. Y'all here talking. We talking about you. We look very nice now. When we gonna move all these chairs? When we gonna go clean out this backyard? Now when we gonna go here and make sure these kids got these books? Because kazi is the blackest of all. So
Right.
Kwanzaa is really about the fruits of our harvest. And they set it December 26th to January 1st for several reasons. One is that that's the time when people usually don't have to go to work if they can manage. The 26th is there because it's the day after Christmas, because it is a counter to the commercialization of Christmas those children from Freedom Theater were roasting in that documentary.
Mhm.
You done spent all your money, and then you said a white man came down your chimney and gave your children toys, and you didn't get credit for it. What's these to see these children laying this thing out? Y'all gotta go find this documentary anyway. And the other reason that it goes for 7 days, of course, 7 is a very important number in a number of our ways of knowing systems, is that it ends with a feast, a karamu, a feast on the 1st of January, thereby linking the years. It's very intentional. So it isn't that, oh, why did y'all go over into the next year? Because the years are linked. Those are just numbers on a calendar. 21 and 22. Did you wake up feeling different? No. All right, then. Well, then we're going to keep this going over into January 1 to help you know that what we've been building this momentum with at the end of the year, it empties into the next year. And purpose is very there deliberate. So, and without going through, like you said, we'll keep it short now because,
Mhm.
without going through all the rituals and all things, we know that there are 7 principles, the Nguzo Saba. And Saba means 7, of course, in Kiswahili, but Nguzo is a word that really almost more closely translates to pillar. It's like 7 pillars. Here are the foundations. It's, the foundations of our common collective beliefs. We believe in unity. That's the first color, black, unity. We believe in unity of her. And then Kujichagulia, self-determination. That is, we must now collectively build our future together. We got to determine for ourselves. Ujima, collective work and responsibility. One individual getting the bag and hustling, that's cool, but what about all of us work together, which leads to the next principle, Ujamaa, cooperative economics. Capitalism is not going to save us. We have to be collective. So how are we going to plow into our businesses? How are we going to plow into our community? And then Nia, purpose, which of course became a very popular name for people to name their children. But some of these names ended up in children's names. People say, well, I don't celebrate Kwanzaa. Yeah, but your child named Nia.
Yeah.
Come on, purpose, which is what we're going to talk about, right? Kuumba, creativity. Well, we are always, we created everything. So, I mean, let's just be clear. And then Imani, the last day is faith. We bring that in. And of course, January the 1st, we know that that's a very important date in African history in the diaspora. It is often in the United States, it was the day, for example, in Philly, that Black folk prayed to, yeah, there we go. There they go. Yes, yes. There you go. Fine, Shane. That's right. Let people see the kanara, the candle holder, the fruits on the mat there, the cake of the mat, the kikombe wa umoja, the unity cup. All of the symbols mean something. And but we know that we had watch night. So January 31st, people be praying and then they pray in the new year. Well, that took very important significance before the end of the Civil War, because the Emancipation Proclamation went into effect January 1st, 1863. And Black folks said, we're going to pray into the new year, then get up off our knees, go get these guns, kill these Confederates and free ourselves. So I mean, Lincoln ain't free nobody. This is a nice piece of paper, but now Kazi is the blackest of all. Let's go work this
Let's go
army.
work.
You know what I'm saying?
Get to work. Yes.
Shout out to Camp William Penn out there at the end of Broad Street, Cheltenham. The black people say, well, let's go end this war. But watch night is very important for us. Emancipation Day, January 1st, became a very important date. So anyway, but purpose, Nia, the 5th principle of the principle that says to make our collective vocation the building and developing of our community in order to restore our people to their traditional greatness. So it isn't about a new set of values. It's about renewing our old, very old and deep and strong and powerful values so we can restore our people. That's it. So purpose. I see why that's your favorite.
Yes. It's my favorite, and it ties in right to, again, like I said, it just is so connected to everything we've been doing, everything we're building here, and the legacy that we're continuing.
Yes.
Like I said, in December, we had our giants on, right? So restoring to our traditions,
Yes.
what we know works, how we know how to move together collectively in a movement.
That's
And
right.
then again, like, it's 2022, but we still dealing with the same problems we was dealing with in 1965, right?
That's
Like,
the
so
same problems.
the same stuff still reoccurring. But I think that what happens is that we forget our purpose, or people are not understanding our
There we
purpose.
go.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. We forget our purpose, or people aren't understanding their purpose. Some folks are lost. And hearing stories from our elders, a lot of people talk about they felt like they had a calling, um, and
Yes.
they were going to answer that call. And when they
Yes.
when I hear that, when I hear they say they had a calling, I connect that calling to like, oh, that was your purpose, right? You found it. You were called, and you answered that call.
Yes.
But sometimes I think that people need a call to get answered. And I want to talk a little bit about the things today, because there's callings all over the world for
Mhm,
people
mhm.
to answer.
Yeah, a lot of
Um,
people called down here to Washington, D.C. a year ago today. They
they
were
were.
called.
That was their calling, right?
Yeah,
That
that
was,
was their calling. And because they were white in their white riot, unlike our dear sister, who is not an ancestor, it's so important that you say that and that you sat with her, Erica Huggins. If Erica Huggins and her comrades had come down here with guns on jam, can you imagine? You know what I'm saying? Half of her comrades that are
or
alive
say
are
it this
still
way:
locked up.
Erica Huggins and her comrades didn't even have to come anywhere
Nope.
to be slaughtered,
That's right.
or imprisoned in
That's
mass numbered. They didn't even have to show up at the Capitol of
that's right. I
the
mean, my God,
nation's capital, be
that,
slaughtered.
that conversation you had with Dr. Gwen, Charlie Cobb, Charles Payne, and I mean, these were young people who were under perpetual assault. The state literally tried to kill them and killed some of them and jailed others. I mean, it is
Yep.
unbelievable. But if you are white, you can take a private plane, come to Washington D.C., turn up, tear up the whole United States Capitol, claim you're going to lynch the sitting vice president, and then go home. And eventually, yeah, they may arrest you. They may give you a little sentence and maybe 60 days. And so he's 60 days.
And
Brown is still in jail for a crime he didn't commit. You know what I'm saying? Russell Maroon show y'all let him out because you wanted to die in jail, and so you can act like you did some compassionate
something.
release. And y'all giving
Okay.
white people who tore up the Capitol saying hang Mike Pence, and if they could have got into one or two doors, past Congressman Jim Clyburn's door with his name on it, and went to his secret place in the Capitol, meaning you were talking to Congress people. We know y'all were talking to Congress people who are on the inside, who are basically telling y'all where to go get these people, and you get 60 days in jail. That ain't
And
nothing
that's
but
it.
whiteness at work.
And again, it wasn't even like these are threats. This was live action, right? Like this is like you're active,
Straight up.
actively in pursuit, saying you're going to hang people.
Hang Mike Pence. They chanting, hang Mike Pence. Oh, yeah, and Jetoon, good look on that. Because the Kwanzaa principles, those 7 days of Kwanzaa, the whole reason to focus on them during those days is to reinforce the fact that we focus on them the entire year. They
Years.
aren't just that week. That's good, Jetoon. Yeah, and it's always a lot of red, black, and green. When you see those flags, it gives you great comfort.
Yes.
Gives
And
you
that's another reason why I wanted to like not like, even though we were off for 2 weeks,
Mhm.
I felt like we had to talk about Kwanzaa, because I feel like people do feel like, oh, we just do it for these 7 days.
Yeah,
And those are the principles and that's it. Not understanding, no, you are living this out. Like Kwanzaa is not a principle for 7 days. It's a, like most stuff, like it's a way of life.
that's right.
It's how we should be governing. It's our ways of being.
That's right.
So it is definitely super important to make sure that these principles are live,
That's right.
24, 365 days a year.
No question.
Um, but I think we don't talk about it enough in education spaces. I think
Oh,
it's one of those principles that gets, or one of those things or traditions that get written off as like, oh, that's the Afrocentric stuff. Where like we talk about Christmas, talk about Thanksgiving. Does
right.
anybody write that off as white supremacy or Eurocentric traditions?
No.
No, right?
Imagine people who call themselves Christians were Christians more than one day a year. We wouldn't be in this mess. But then again, they aren't Christians on Christmas. So let's be clear. I mean, last I checked by that story they say happened, which we don't know if it did happen. By the way, uh, um, respect to some of the oldest Christians in the world, our Ethiopian family and the Ethiopian Orthodox Church. I
Mhm.
think Christmas is this weekend. isn't it? It's coming up. Yeah, because they say now the 25th is not the day. But we know that that's a solstice celebration. But the last I checked from the story, what was it? The sister was pregnant. She and her fiance had to leave their house and come to the city to get on the tax rolls. The government made them come. They couldn't find a place, so they was in a shelter, had the baby on some straw, and then had to get out of Dodge because the government started hunting the child. The child did grow to manhood, but then the feds had an informant in. He had COINTELPRO, found him out, killed him. So I mean, that's a very black story. I mean,
it is a very black story. I mean, and how you just put Jesus in COINTELPRO is crazy, but it is.
I'm saying, but so if you calling yourself a Christian, then and that's not the story, then you really not. I'm saying, are you a Christian? I mean, because Jesus wasn't a Christian. Jesus was a black kid trying to get the hell away from the feds, yes. Broke up his family, you know what I'm saying? And then killed him. And then waited a few years and started talking about how much they loved him. Shit, that sounds more like Martin Luther King. I don't know, ain't that holiday coming up in a minute? But they're gonna make y'all paint the schools that you already paid tax dollars to paint. Oh, that's a Jedi mind trick, ain't it?
It is. It is. And like you said, that's a black story right there.
Right. This is a black story.
It's a very black story. It's a very black legacy Jesus holding right there. Right?
Black legacy, yo. We love you, but why did you kill me?
No, why did you kill me?
Talk about that.
But it's the truth. But it's the truth.
Yeah. Yes, so 365 days a year. Christians, try being a Christian 365. Muslim, try to be a Muslim 365. We'll show you with Kwanzaa because we're going to do them 7 principles all year round.
And it's as we should. As we should. It shouldn't be a once a year.
No.
To ground us again.
No.
In purpose.
It's our purpose.
I agree 100%.
It's our purpose.
I think also, Doc, what I think is super important to like talk about and highlight. We don't really talk about this a lot, brag about this a lot, but we coming into 2022 and I saw it. This will be your 35th year teaching.
I messed that tweet up.
What you mean you messed it up?
No, because I was actually, because you're right. I don't talk about it. And that's not even why, yes, you know why I tweeted that? Because you, me, everybody at the Center for Black Educator Development, Citizen Ed, all of us, we are educators.
That's right.
And right now, I doubt there's an educator in the country, really in the world, who is not experiencing high anxiety. You got children yourself, you got elders, we have families. We don't want anyone to get sick. We don't want to get sick. We don't want our children to get sick. And in a place like the city of Chicago, they have a strong union. They say, we're not going back up in this building until these policymakers make it safe for these children and safe for us. So everybody doesn't have a laptop. Well, then why didn't you get it to them? We've been telling y'all since this thing began in March 2020, get these children the technology they need and get them broadband access. And if they don't have it at home, create some kind of place where they can learn. We would rather be physically with our children. But if it's not safe, meanwhile, you got people out here talking about they need to go back to school. And I'm saying you have the governor of Florida, a remarkable fascist, who is, has been hiding for 2 weeks. And he showed up yesterday talking like this. Oh, you had COVID. I mean, we knew you a punk, but you hid for 2 weeks. I mean, and you still ain't healed. But my point is, teachers are terrified right now all over the country. And so I put that tweet out because what I was saying is, and I thought about it and I said, how long have I been teaching? I said, dang, the first class I had was the summer of after I graduated from undergrad. I was 22 years old, South Street Community Center, with a bunch of elementary school children where we had a summer program and we were teaching history and culture. Of course, I had the children in there and I had them making little skits based on the Iran-Contra hearings because they were on TV. So the children were in there breaking down Oliver North and the testimony. Oh, we had a great time. I'm sure some of those children got children older than most of our scholars now. But anyway, I said all that to say that. So that was 35 years ago. And between there, community college, when I was in Columbus, I taught at a women's prison one time. I mean, all kind of different things. I said 35 years, but that wasn't even the reason I tweeted it. The reason I tweeted it was I was saying teaching is frontline work in a pandemic. So all of you who are talking about y'all need to go back to class. Y'all need to do all that work. Oh, yeah, there it is. Oh, Lord. Yeah. see that first paragraph, I didn't mean what I was basically trying to say is I've been in a lot of classrooms and I've learned from a lot of teachers. especially elementary and middle school teachers and high school teachers. And for those who are scholars who write about things and talk about what teachers should and shouldn't be doing, I'm like, yeah, I've been in them classrooms too. Let me be very clear. Teachers are worried about everyone's health during this crisis. In
Right.
person is frontline work too. So teachers aren't abstract. They got to leave their house, come back, take care of their grandmama or granddaddy,
Right.
worry about their children. If you say, I don't believe in vaccines and send your child to school, you are just endangering all the children and the teacher who's going to go back. Shana, yesterday there were almost 600,000 new cases reported in the United States. That blew my mind. Well, Omicron is mild. Yeah, it's mild to everybody except the person who gets so sick they can't breathe.
That's right.
Teachers are terrified. And I'm saying, as a teacher myself, I'm like, I'm good with staying here for the rest of my life if it's not going to mean endangering health. So that's why I tweeted that. And then people start saying, oh, congratulations. Like, oh, wait, no, that's not why.
So I know you're like, wait, I didn't, because I know you, right? So you're not like, I ain't saying this to say I've been in it for
Not a
35
flex,
years.
no question.
But I think an important piece to point out about this, Doc, is like you have been in this for 35 years. Like you decided to teach, but you're also staying very steadfast in it, even with all the
That's
pandemic,
exactly right.
all the assaults that have happened on education, Black teachers, Black children.
No question.
What a question I have for you though is like, what keeps you in this work?
Focus. What you just said, purpose. What you just said, Shana, purpose. In other words, I was fortunate enough to be apprenticed by master teachers. My
Mm-hmm.
master teachers, almost all of whom are ancestors now from, high school, elementary school, college. One of my teachers still here, 103 years old, Jamie Williams, who was the chair of the Department of Communication and Theater at Tennessee State. They were master teachers, and they were trained by the master teachers that we have our Freedom School young people read about in books like
Mm-hmm.
The Lost Education of Horace Tate. They were the African-centered educators, and they believed in community. So that's who trained me. So when I see things, with all due respect, now with waves of scholars talking about creating, we got to engage with our students. So I've come up with this concept called ratchetdemics. I'm like, that's absurd. Because what goes off in my mind is ratchetness did not build the pyramids.
Mm-hmm.
Ratchetness did not fill the libraries of Timbuktu. Ratchetness did not build the HBCUs. Ratchetness did not go into Black History Week and Negro History Week and Negro History Month. There is no place for remixing our standards to fit some silly minstrel profile. And so for me, if I left the profession, I would be abandoning my comrades and who know that and who work every day. But I'll tell you
Mm-hmm.
what though, I must say this though, Shana, it took me 20 months of a pandemic. I was thinking about this yesterday. My first class of the semester was last night in my class at Howard Law School, and it was remote because Howard is shut down until the 18th of January because of this new wave. And I was writing my syllabus for the semester, and then so I won't have my introduction to African American Studies class for another week plus. I'll load that syllabus. But I said, you know what? I'm going to write this from scratch. Sometimes, people update their syllabi, change the dates, move some things around. But I said, what have I learned? And so I sat, particularly since I knew we were going to talk, this week. What was my purpose? I think purpose is brilliant for you to pick that term, that principle. It took me 20 months of a pandemic to get to the question I asked myself the other day as I was sitting with a blank piece of paper, sketching out how I want to think about this class differently. Why teach university classes? And why teach the specific classes I'm teaching? I mean, why do we teach K-12? Why do we teach? What is a class? What is the purpose? When we go into a learning environment, what is a purpose? And I thought to myself, well, a class is a search for meaning. It's a place-making exercise. In other words, it's a place where we share time, which is the definition of community in some ways. Community is when people share time together. We're going through time together. So when you're in a classroom with a teacher, people say, well, what do teachers do? You know what they do because you want them to be in there doing it while you do something. They're sharing time with the next generation and they're connecting. So when you're talking with these elders and y'all are having conversation, you're sharing time. And someone says, well, we're remote learning isn't working. Well, why isn't it working? Because those young people are sharing time with their teachers and with each other, even on a screen. And if you're at home, you should be, if you can't share time with them directly, when they're not there, you should help them. There should be no loss of learning if we have our purpose aligned. But a
Mhm.
lot, so I'm sitting there thinking, specific subjects in school are really prompts. You know, they're driven by interest. Sometimes they're driven by necessity because we're going to train people in skills and we're going to get, yeah, but they're really prompts. In other words, let's get some of this content and then let's have a conversation about it and let's help develop our intelligence. And that's why this educator pipeline is so important, because young people learn from everything. They learn from their environment, they learn from the human beings around them, every adult. If you've got adults who look like them, who can hear them, I don't know if you've seen this. There's a new show on. I think it's
Uh,
Hulu.
by Quinta
Do you know that, sister?
Quinton.
Because
Do
I
I
watched
know? I
the first
don't
two
know
episodes and I
Quinta.
was cracking up because I'm saying this is a variation on every school. I done spent more time than I can even remember over the last 2 decades plus in Philly. This is Philadelphia, yo. I'm like, whoever wrote
Yes.
this. I
Well,
mean, I
she's
know
from Quinta's from Philly.
oh, it's no question about it. But
Mhm.
I'm getting messages from teachers all over the country saying that's the Bronx, that's Brooklyn, you know what I'm saying, that's LA. I mean, because but one of the things one of the characters said, this is this elementary school, right? In Philly. One of the teachers said, we care. It isn't that we don't care. We care. We're here. And if we weren't here, we might get replaced by somebody who doesn't care. Teaching is a delicate craft. And so, what I said was, I was going to rewrite the syllabus, and this is what I'm going to do for my Introduction to African American Studies class, and begin the syllabus with a why. Why are we here? What's our purpose? And the major challenge for teachers, I think, like any other craft, is to develop that quality of community. If teachers aren't pushing each other to learn, if teachers aren't in a community, and we spend a great deal of time with young people, and we spend a great deal of time with each other. So
Yes.
it took me 20 months of a pandemic and doing a lot of this work. Here we are doing something that we wouldn't do like this had it not been for the pandemic. But now that we're doing it, we can't imagine not doing it. We're in a whole new frontier.
Yep.
And so, yeah, so I think that, 35 years in all types of classrooms, my commitment is anchored in connecting us to the momentum of all that memory, not just of my experiences, but our experiences collectively, and not just our experiences now, but our experiences since the origins of humanity. Because I am thoroughly convinced, not just as a matter of theory, but as a matter of deliberate, sustained practice. It has been the center of my life. I am thoroughly convinced that we will do nothing but deteriorate if we anchor who we are and how we approach life and each other in the world in some bizarre uh, reflection of other people's ideas about us.
Of us. That's
We are not
right.
we are not ratchet. We are not fugitives. We are not any of those things. We are African people who gave the world its learning foundations,
Mhm.
and and our condition is based in solutions to the conditions we find ourselves in collectively, have to be based in remembering and connecting. And then once we do that, the young people take it whichever direction they want to take it. But we don't have we got to do that for them. And that's why I'm still in these classrooms.
And we appreciate that. And I know I didn't mean to like put you out there like that today,
That's all
but
right. I ain't mad because I was clearly, I was a little mad yesterday about these people telling teachers to get back in the classroom. I'm like, really? Just
well,
what we're doing now?
right? Like this is an ongoing episode, right? In America, it's always going to be people before profit before people, right? Like that is reoccurring. Like when you are in a capitalistic society, that is it's about the profit. Like, and it's also this wild concept that we hold that like I gotta micromanage every minute of a person's time, right? Like, and if you're not in front, like you got to be right in front of me because I need to tell you what you need to be doing with every single minute. Like,
You know?
yeah, it's sick, right? Like, it's
What does that say to you, Shane? What is that? What's going through somebody's mind when they say that they have to do that?
what a person like me though, right? Like I think differently. I'm like something wrong with you, right? You
Oh no,
feel
I agree. Something's wrong with
oh,
them. I mean, could be that somebody's looking over their shoulder saying, if you don't do it, we're gonna force you to do it.
mm-hmm,
The thing that comes to my mind, and I see our sister, our comrade Anshere, no question, it's capital. It's all capital, right? The thing that comes to my mind is one word: trust.
yes.
Because the best classrooms I was ever in, I think about, man, I remember when Christine Wiggins and them, this is before there was an M Hotel High School, when they were all
Mhm.
middle school teachers. I would go over to Ada Lewis, or I would go hang out, over at Rhodes, E. Washington Rhodes, and
Uh-huh.
just watch these teachers. The master teachers don't get in each other's way. They trust each other. So in other words, you leave one classroom, go to another classroom, those two sisters or brother and sister, they may not see each other except during the breaks. Ain't nobody walking. Oh, and the principal never has to handle what the principal is handling. And they're not even thinking about what's going on in the classrooms. Why? Because that is trust. That trust is built from years of experience. There are master teachers in these rooms.
Mm-hmm.
It will be no different than, I think about the best uh, sports teams. The coaches have to do very little instruction. You look at
Yep.
somebody like Phil Jackson, for example, with Chicago Bulls. You hear those players over and over. Once you got players with skill sets who can trust each other, Phil Jackson is coming in the locker room and say, "Hey, everybody, read this book."
Right.
I'm not even diagramming. We're gonna read and discuss it. I'm
Because
playing.
now I'm trying to facilitate to make sure all things are aligned and working together. I don't
No
have to
question.
teach you a skill because you know what you're doing. And I
Exactly.
agree with that 100%
Exactly.
for master teachers. But it's something again about I'm going to say the new world, but there are people who are in charge who, it's definitely a trust thing, but it's also like a very condescending ear. Like,
Yes.
I don't know better. I mean, you don't know better. Like, I got to tell you what to do with your time. And I got to observe you to make sure you're doing exactly what I told you to do.
My God.
Because you can't do what you want to do. You got to do what I told you to do.
Isn't that
Um,
something?
it
Isn't that
is.
something? You know what's crazy? I mean, I used to love this when I worked directly for the school district of Philadelphia. They would ask me to come to high schools. I would go over to Dobbins, or I'd go hang out at West Philly, High University City. And they said, "We want you to do a professional development." I said, "No problem." I would go over. All the teachers would be in the library. I won't even call it them other names they made up. I had something. Anyway,
Oh, yeah, the rooms. Yep.
yeah, the room, right? The library. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
So we'd all be in there. And I said, the first thing I would like for us to do is throw professional development label in the trash, because professional PD is what got me in the room, but we are all teachers. So we're going to do a sit in a circle and debrief. I said, I feel bad that they pay me to do this, but not bad enough not to do it. I want to learn from the masters in this circle. How do y'all approach this? And then, what you would see sometimes is some administrators, this was before they were replaced with a lot of other administrators, would be in the room, and you could see, like, some of them were very happy. Others would be a little nervous. Why? Because if you spent your administrative life telling teachers how to teach, or saying you're going to watch them, it gets very nervous when you can see what happens is, in a conversation like that, the people who know what they're doing start talking. Then it
Yep.
just becomes, then they're sharing time and notes. And I'm saying, okay, well, what about so-and-so? Okay, so how do you approach this? And that's when you find out you have everything. You just listen to this. Well, y'all listen to these teachers, please. And the teachers who have very little experience, which is why this pipeline source in the center is so important, to work at the center. The teachers who have the least experience, but who have the desire,
To learn. Yeah.
they can learn. In
And
fact, that's one
when I
thing I
tell you
love about.
I've been
Go
the
ahead.
schools that I've been in, right? Like just
Yes.
like you, every school I've been in, every faculty I've been a part of, I can't think of a year that a teacher didn't say, "Hey, can we have some teacher-led PDs?" I can't think
Please.
like that's what they asked for.
Please.
Hey, can we take turns possibly leading content strategy? Like how many times that has been asked upon by teachers?
Now, I
Like,
was known for that. I was known for that. I ain't coming to do nothing but listen, and we're gonna have a conversation. And I would tell them, it's an honor to sit with teachers. In fact,
mhm.
I don't like the concept of professional development. What are we talking about? Development. We're gonna have teacher talk. We all teachers, right? So I mean, so it's so funny. Even in that comedy, what is it? Abbott Elementary, I think they right.
Yep.
The child, the young girl's like, I'm gonna fix this light. So she twists something and all the lights go out, and then they roast her. Then the janitor comes in, the brother, no, the brother, the building, the building engineer, as they would say. Now mind you, now, one of the most brilliant master teachers I've ever known in my life, the great Harrison Ridley, would have been called a janitor. He worked for the school district of Philadelphia for decades, but he was known all over the world as this jazz historian. But every day he worked, his last part of his life, he worked down at 734 Schuylkill, the school district building. That's where our offices were. So the building engineer comes in and fixes everything. Because see what they did, they went in the damn switch box and started messing around with the switch. Y'all don't know what y'all doing. You know what I'm saying?
Let the expert handle it.
And in that moment, the lesson of that episode, while the girl they all outside, the old head teachers turn to her, and that's when she gets the lesson on how to keep this thing together. But it started with her going and doing something that would have been considered wrong. Now, in a micromanaging world, are they gonna write her up? Are they gonna punish her? No. We all made mistakes. Let me tell you what I did when I was 23 and walked into school for the first time. You know what I'm saying? But that's teachers. And the best administrators elevate their teachers, respect their teachers. You know, I had one of my colleagues at Howard, Jules Harrell, a great scholar, master teacher. He always tells the students, a school is the students and the teachers. Everybody else is there to support that. So never forget anybody else. No. Are you a teacher? No. You a student? No. Then how are you supporting what we're doing? Because the only reason we here is this classroom.
Right.
If you're a superintendent, you are learning support. But okay, support. You're not telling me what to do. This is a craft.
Yeah, but even the way your mindset is in approaching like what a school building is just completely different from how they actually function.
It is. It's true. That's true.
And I think that that's why, like, our schools they're in crisis right now, right? Because if your mindset, if that's applied, this building are the teachers and the students, and we're here to support. So then the logic would be, well, what's best for them? And let's ask them, right? Let's ask them, and let's see how comfortable they are. Not we know what's best in a building where I can go into a cubicle or office and stay safe, right? Like I'm not around kids or have to deal with folks who are unvaccinated and don't wear masks. Like I can protect myself from all that. But I'm going to make all of the decisions for people who are in the world of mess. That's super problematic.
It's funny you say it, because what I've also observed is a deep transition. When I first became aware of what they would now call, I think, research-based academic kind of prescriptions for education, I was in probably law school, educational law, ed law, and things like that, and then going to grad school in the late 80s, early 90s. But what I've seen now is that there's a whole cottage industry in people who somehow think they know better than teachers. They write books and they do these workshops and they do these the most effective gatherings to help teachers, seems to me, are gatherings where you provide teachers with resources. So teachers will come to these conferences and they'll pay for them to go places. And what they want to know is, okay, can I get my hands on this content? Can I get access to this research website so I can help my students? Can you show me how to navigate this so that I can? But what I don't need is these powerful workshops on talking about, you know, we gotta love our children. Look, I understand that, but we don't have enough books. Can you help me get these books? I know I need resources. And so I look at these. I'd say this has been over the last maybe 30 years or so. It's so fascinating for me when we go places and you hear people talking about the children and what then research shows us this, and this improves reading and this improves math. And I'll look around to the teachers who I know are master teachers, and you can see them. You know how you get that look on your face when you can tell that you're not listening. So people like, and I'm saying, see, and I'm looking for the teachers who I know are master teachers. And here goes somebody that's got $1 million grant from X Foundation and X University to write about grit or to write about something. And they looking at people, and you don't know nothing about these people. They looking at you like, okay. And so sometimes I'll say, I say, so how long do you think he would last in a classroom? Maybe a week, maybe 2 weeks. In other words, you can't, you know. So I think you're right, it's not working. But when I think about the work that you all are doing, and again, if you're not in Philadelphia, but you know people who are doing the kind of work that, you know, Shayna and Sheree and Stephanie and some, I mean, they're doing, nothing makes me happier than when you know, y'all send me a video, or I look and see something, and I see teachers talking to each other in community, and then talking with students in community and building. That's when I can breathe a sigh of relief, because I know that we have everything we need.
Mm-hmm.
And what you did in December, what you've been doing all along with this work, with this platform especially, but what you did in December is so critically important, because no teacher should enter a space where she or he or they feel that they're pioneers. No, you've entered a craft with the oldest pedigree. If you talk about Black education,
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't, you know, this doesn't come from slavery. We endured slavery. We resisted. We endured apartheid. We resisted. But you've entered a craft that begins literally with the origins of humanity. And so you should never feel like you're coming into a place where this is hopeless. This is hopeless.
Because
And,
it's
and
not.
it's not hopeless. No, no, no. It's
It's
the
not
opposite of
hopeless,
hopeless.
and you're
It
not
is,
here to
it is the
save.
hope.
It's not hopeless, and you're not here to save, no matter how much some people tell you do. And I agree with you on
What
in
is
terms
that?
of, I don't know.
Right.
I don't know. But I mean, people be having that, right? But you know what it actually is? It actually to connect it to the theme of today. When folks have to find a purpose, right? If my purpose, right, is to save and to help, right? I feel grounded in a purpose. But sometimes that's why I said at the top of the show, when you don't give people a call to answer, right? Like they're going some folks are going to find one. And some people's purpose or they feel like their calling is rooted in helping or saving when that's not really the case. So like another thing that I took from the Giants from last month that I spoke to was they were asking me some questions. And one of the
Exactly.
things that they well, and one of the things that they were like asking, even about the work with freedom schools, is like, hey, what larger movement is that connected to? Meaning, like, we had freedom schools, but everything we did was connected to a larger movement, right? Like, we had a focus, we had a movement, everything we did had a purpose. And what we love to do, right, is like take all of the works from Black Panthers or civil rights movement and like people like to piecemeal it. We
Right.
just go march. No,
Right.
that's not like marching was a strategy connected to another strategy to a deeper strategy, right? Like, like it was
Right.
those two orgs are one of the most high, like one of those events in time, one of the most highly organized, I mean, movements, right? That you'll see in terms of being in America, and the way they did that. And I think people are like chasing that legacy, but want to take what they find attractive, and don't want to do the work.
Well, you know, it's so funny you say that, because it reminds me that when I think about, particularly we talk about the Panthers and liberation schools,
Mm-hmm.
and the summer we read We Want Freedom, Mumia Abu Jamal's book, and brought together many of the Philly Panthers
Yep.
with the junior servant leaders. It was very much about that work, because, you know, as you know, I mean, every summer we had a social action piece, and then we had our year rounds. We continued that work. What we have to do a better job of, and I think this is a good purpose for 2022 rather. And we did one summer, we did something called, you know, institutional memory, where we interviewed elders, this kind of thing. Part of the answer to that question is to remember there are two things. One, remember that we have always tried to do that, at least in our little corner of the world. And the second thing is that we should spend more time talking with ourselves. Because when I think of the people who have come through the educational systems of Philadelphia, who were connected to those kind of movements that connect, and I think about what they're doing now, I think about, like we talked about, Rashida Ford in Baltimore. I'm saying that's connect. I mean, you know, but what we rarely do is we rarely pause and take an inventory of where our people are and how they're connected to other people and how they connect. Because every new thing, new shiny thing that comes, we're gonna do this. You say, okay, good, because you got some money from a foundation. You got something. You're gonna show us how to. No, here's what you're gonna do: give us the money, and we'll see you later. Or better yet, just go. Because because we need to pick up the phone or pick up the internet, get on the emails, get on the text, get on the group meets, and remember what we've done. And the other thing I say quickly is, I'll never forget. This would have been around maybe 1998 or 99. I was in a meeting, and they were talking, as always, talk about saving people. How we going? These at-risk students, blah blah. I'm sitting there bristling, but I'm quiet. I'm listening. School district. And a very senior level administrator during a break was talking to a younger administrator about where to send their child to elementary school and whether they should send their children to a school district school or a private school. And I'll never forget what this administrator told this other one. The older one said, "Oh, you never sacrifice your own." The meeting resumed, and here goes a policymaker talking about how they're gonna help these at-risk. But and I never forgot that, because I see that over. I see it at universities. I see it at K-12. The very people setting policy. This is why Lisa Delpit named her book "Other People's Children." You would never, and that's why I would always go to meetings, and then they give this great new curriculum. They talk about it. So I said, I got two questions. One, do you have children? Yes. Number two, would you let your child do this? And if you start stimmering and stalling, I'm leaving. Well, I got work to do. Kazi is the blackest of all. What I'm not going to do is sit here and have you experiment on our children like they Frankensteins. You would never let your children. So if it's not good enough for your children, we need to pull this contract, fire this person who gave the contract. You need to get out of here. Because you're looking at our children like animals in a zoo or cute little people at the shelter or something. They're not human.
Yep.
So I don't know how we,
But I think that draws in good when you talk about purpose. And I think that if folks are looking for purpose in education and looking for purpose in 2022, I feel like sometimes we're at the point of, what do you have to lose? Go ahead and be a disruptor.
Well, I think that's the important thing we have to remember, Shana.
Yep.
What has happened is, I was reading some stuff the other day about this. Move my books around here. I'm writing curriculum, so I got books everywhere now. But the thing I think one of the things we have to remember about that is it's a lot of money now.
It is.
And this is, I'm just reading a book that Stephen Marsh, he's a Canadian writer. He just wrote a book called The Next Civil War. I'm trying to get in touch with him, actually, because I want to talk to him. He said, the country going to come apart. I'm in Canada. I interviewed 200 some scholars and military people, MAGA people, Black Lives Matter. He went all over the country. And he says, I'm very clear that really nothing has changed in the United States. What happens is we mistake the trigger for the reason. No. He said, when Breonna Taylor was murdered, when George Floyd was murdered, those are triggers. But everything that was going to happen is going to happen anyway. He said it could be a natural disaster. If a category 2 hurricane hits New York, it floods out, that could be the trigger. In other words, if something else, I said I'd say this. When people who have an investment in making money thought that we was going to tear the country to pieces in the wake of the murders of George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, and them last summer, all of a sudden, every company, every corporation, everyone wanted to have a diversity and equity training. A year later, they passed that. They ain't hired no black people. But what they did do is figure out we're going to give you $3. And once we get you $3 and you get hooked on that $3, we're going to start saying that if you want to keep getting that $3, we got to figure out what this means to us. What do we have to lose? What we've always had to lose in those environments. This is how you stop revolutionary education work. You fund it. This is a difficult thing people to think. You can't, and I'm saying, well, we think that way, we'll never have resources. Let's be crystal clear about this. I defy anyone living to show me anywhere in the history of Black education where our liberation work, subsidized by entities that we know are against us, resulted in our progress. I want to see it. I want to see it. And if you go say, well, okay, let's go back to the Ford Foundation. The first Black head of the Ford Foundation just made transition a few weeks ago, Franklin A. Thomas. Franklin Thomas was in Bedford-Stuyvesant. He's from that area. Ocean Hill, Brownsville, all that work that we had the young people read, we read African people. The Ford Foundation He came out of that work, and then they brought him in. Bobby Kennedy then brought him in to run the Ford Foundation. They were funding Black Studies programs. And what are Black Studies programs now? Let's talk about the intersections of the poetics of Blackness as it manifests. And then we'll publish the book with the university. Black people are dying. Yeah, that's tragic. I want to theorize how the intersectionality of what you absorbed all that energy, you killed the Panthers, put them in jail, you chased other people out of the country, and then you funded these Negroes who have these magnificent celebrations of Blackness. And if they work real hard, they might even get, I don't know, maybe they'll get a series on HBO and where you can sit on Sunday nights and pay your cable bill and watch them talk about Blackness. And it's beautiful. And every song on there is being sung by somebody who seems to have forgotten the function of consonants. And they're, this is what happened. You know what I'm saying? You subsidize, and what is the purpose? What is the purpose of this? Well, I'm just celebrating my Blackness. Okay, but the people are dying. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, but I got a Black Panther t-shirt on and I remixed it real nice. So you can see Huey. Is anybody else paying attention to this? That's not revolutionary work. Because at the end of the day, I just saw yesterday, Apple just announced that they are the first $1 trillion company in the world. Now,
yeah,
you know what I'm saying? They talking about all supply chain. And the cost of your bread, the cost of your gas, all that's going up. It ain't supply chain. It is the market realizing this pandemic is a crisis that we can make opportunity from. They are getting richer. You know what I'm saying? And they'll hit a couple of y'all off to remix something and make a little song and maybe get a little contract to put some shirts together or something. And you're gonna call that progress. You need to get the hell out of our way.
But will they?
No, they won't, which is why this is when you said that in terms of purpose, our purpose must always be to never be distracted.
Yep.
And to work together. And that's what we're doing here.
Agreed. I mean, you can't allow people to steer you off the path.
No.
And I wanted to talk about purpose. Again, we talked about this before we got on air in terms of like or it might have been at the top of the show. New Year's resolution. Every year somebody want a new one. No. We gotta understand we have the same purpose. Never changes, that never wavers.
That's right.
365 days a year, 24 hours a day. Freedom and liberation got to be at the top of our minds. And with the world in crisis right now, we have to. We got to stay focused. We cannot be distracted. I agree 100%. So saying that to say, especially for today and on this show, the reminder, we know what our purpose is, and we have to stand tall in that. And for people who are looking for a call to answer this call.
Answer this call. If you don't know, you better ask somebody. Because guess what? We do know, and only we know, though. You don't know by yourself. I don't know by myself. If we don't know the answers, we can look at each other.
Yes.
Again, I mean, I know we were drawn to a close, but what you did last December, and again, if y'all haven't seen it, go back and look at those earlier conversations. The people know. Ask the people.
They're still here.
They're still here. They're still here.
I mean, when I tell you it's insane to me, but to hear them talk about their stories in terms of like, especially when you listen to the Black Panther speak, they're like, so we were at a time where it just wasn't cool to be a Panther. Like, I didn't live in where it was all this glory, where like I walked in a room and people were like, oh my God, you were a Black Panther. Like, that's not what my reality was.
No.
In that work. Like, that's not what it was.
No. Well, people say that because they're not that. And that's why I'm saying people, it's cool. I was cool. Say, wait, no, it was normal. And I think that's where the thing comes. I mean, for me, the most, let me not say for me, I think it will be hard to argue if we're going to talk about most important time periods, the period between the mid 60s and the decade of the 1970s, the end of the decade of the 1970s is probably, I don't think there's any more important period in our history in the United States. Not during enslavement, not during the so-called 1920s Harlem Renaissance, New Negro movement. It is the Black Power movement. Because those Panthers, everybody wasn't in the Panthers. Everybody wasn't in us. But so many more Black people in the late 60s and then through the 1970s, Freedom Days, through all that stuff, that is the foundation. And then what this country did, those running the place who don't like that kind of thing, they work like hell to either smash those institutions or divert that energy into something else. So if you look at everything, you look at Philadelphia, for example, you look at the freedom school stuff, you look at all the independent schools, it's the mid 60s through the 70s.
Yep.
But that's the case in Pittsburgh. That's the case in Buffalo, New York. That's the case in LA and Portland, Oregon. That is the case in Jackson, Mississippi, Atlanta. That was the period. Then you got to ask yourself, what changed? It wasn't that they didn't want to do it anymore. It was a very deliberate attack on those systems.
Agreed.
And got it.
And,
Yeah.
And when I tell you, spending my life figuring out how we get back to those periods.
That's what we're doing. Look, that's why I feel that freedom schools got your lead. This is Egyptian. You can't ratchet that. That's not ratchet.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry. No, actually, I'm not sorry.
You have to be sorry. And I think that you open up for definitely like a lady show that we're gonna have.
We gotta have that. We gotta have that.
Definitely open up for a lady show that we're gonna have. And Mr. Emden, who you speak of, will probably be a future guest here.
Can we get him on? Maybe the two of us could be in conversation, because
I don't know. I'm gonna see about the two of us, but I think because
you want to talk to him first? Okay, no problem. I was on a panel, and I ain't got no shade for the brother. In fact, I'm too busy working.
Yes,
I'm too busy working. You know what I'm saying? I mean, I don't see ratchet in none of the dictionaries of Egyptian language that I study. I don't see that word in there. So I'm just saying, now I see wretched, I see nehesi, but even that is a condition. In fact, the Egyptians said of the Nubians when they was fighting them, they cousins, and they said nehesi, and sometimes that translates as wretched. But what that really means is you are not behaving to the standard that we would attribute with being human in the world.
Yes.
So to say ratchetness, I'm like, what?
And I tell people this all the time about you, Doc, in terms of like, Doc is never going to be in support or any of that in any of these terminologies that he feel is
a disrespect
or degradation.
No, I don't believe in minstrelsy
to us as African people.
No, anytime people who have been our open enemies start clapping and smiling and slapping you on the back, you know that's not in our interest.
Well, I'm about to say, anytime that happens, you do have to like kind of take a side and understand what you within. And I think it's always important. I always say this too. It's all good and it's all not in fun and respect. We should always hold each other accountable and be critical of one another.
Yeah, because ultimately we all do want the same thing.
We do.
Yeah, that's the thing. Yeah, I have fun with it, but you know, we got too much work to do.
It's a lot of work to do.
These people damn near tore up their country a year ago today. And guess what? They not going to jail. This is something. They're being arrested. No. 60 days in jail ain't going to jail. You understand? You ask some black people about jail time. Jail time is from now on, as he's saying the hood. You know what I'm saying? What'd you get? I got from now on. In other words,
yes,
they not going to jail. One of them getting ready to run for president of the United States again, and what might be the president, because they've been rigging elections for 2 years now.
Yeah,
and meanwhile we run around talking about no, I'm sorry, it ain't we. You're right. It's all in fun. Let me stop. Because I'm going to go back to
but to bring us back full circle, I think that even shedding the light on that, this is why purpose and finding purpose is so important. Because the people who a year ago tore up the Capitol, they had a purpose.
They had a straight purpose, and they stayed focused.
Very focused. They still focused.
You understand? Yo.
they didn't do a new resolution in 2022. They are steadfast on the same, right?
Nope. And in fact, they're gonna skip over 2023. Their focus is 2024. Meanwhile, we run around here talking about how can we, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Oh, Bob Street said a ratchet of the earth. Can you imagine? Fanon? That's a good one, Baba. Can you imagine Prince Fanon writing a book called A Ratchet of the Earth? But Baba, I promise you, this is what's gonna be. This is what's gonna break all our hearts. Somebody gonna see that right there, and they already calling a publisher, trying to figure out how they can make that the title of their book.
Yes.
Mark my words. And I will read it word for word and eviscerate it right here on this show. And you're going to invite that author when they come, because we got to start having these hard conversations. Y'all stop playing with the language black people created. You understand? Because you becoming a minstrel before the whole world. They've cutting our heads off. And if we don't look different, I know we're going over, but if we don't look different, They're right while we here having this conversation in the country of Chile, they have a 155 member constitutional committee. They are literally writing a new constitution for the country. The indigenous people are at the table. They don't have enough right-wing people to stop them, and they could write a brand new constitution in Chile that's going to restructure the part of their country. Meanwhile, we up here in the United States trying to figure out ways to make hip-hop songs out of slave masters and invite children to go watch it like this. Okay, enough.
Look, the set you off at the end. He like, girl, this came at the end. But we are definitely gonna wrap up. And as always, Baba, I thank you. And folks, of course, y'all always love and support Dr. Carr and I. He will be back still the last Thursday.
Yeah, I ain't going nowhere. We always here
of this month. But we definitely wanted to open up in our new year with Dr. Carr to help us all center and what's going on out here in this education world. But we got to answer this call and we got to find our purpose, y'all. But we will be back.
Yes.
We will be back here next week. Same time, same place. We love y'all. Thanks for visiting Building the Black Educator Pipeline podcast, people.
Love you.
Peace.